All right, all right. Taylor, are we good? All right. Good evening, everybody. All right. Thank you guys for showing up and going through these interesting times that we have going on. And a lot's happened last couple months. I think everybody's learned a lot. I think everyone's more frustrated or less frustrated. Kind of a combination of two, because we understand more, but we don't understand more. And we're trying to figure out where we are in this process. So what tonight is for is not a bunch of, like the last ones have been, we're not going to talk that much. We're going to answer a bunch of questions that you guys have, right, that are coming up. And we've got a good panel coming in to help you out here. So let's go to the status of where things are sitting right now. And then we'll introduce some of the panels when we just get a second. So people from FEMA are not here on purpose, right? Because we're going to have a couple of comments and thoughts and ideas to share. And the people that are here, especially from the government officials, you're going to see how much care they actually have and what everyone's doing to try to get everybody back in their home and to get the answers to get things moving as quickly as possible, right? And we're going to find out what the stumbling blocks are, what are some solutions to get over those stumbling blocks, and how to get everybody's goal happen faster, which is figure out whether you can build and then build and get back and on with life, right? So that's kind of where we're going here. So here's kind of the situation, right? Typically you get a hurricane, you get a storm comes through, and where it impacts, it wipes out a couple hundred homes, right? And which is not to make light of it, but it is what it is. And you have to go do what we're doing now, but only for a couple hundred homes. You enter Hurricane Helene, and it comes in and it hits 22,000 homes, right? In the same area that's normally ready. Then you talk about 9,000 homes on the Gulf beaches, and then what do we have? Close to 1,700 homes just in Madeira Beach alone. There's no staff for it. There's no standard operating procedure for it. Everyone's going, what do I actually do from this stage forward? So we weren't staffed for it, and what do? You got to figure it out. So here's the other issue. The standard operating procedures that were there were not applicable to the area, right? When you get the numbers that came in from FEMA, they're nationwide numbers. So thankfully, we have good leadership. I know it's frustrating because it didn't happen as soon as possible. From what I've learned through this process is they looked at some of the numbers that were on the global spreadsheets that they wanted to apply to your house, and that would have got us all in a lot of trouble, right? It would have been painful. And so you look at Mike Twitty, and you look at what the property appraiser's office did and what the local building officials are doing, and they said this isn't right, so they had to go back through and reapply numbers to different things for Southwest Florida figures, so it's more favorable for us to be able to get back into our homes, right? So it's important to understand kind of the backstory about why it's been so slow and the situations that are at hand for that one, right? So then they realized that if they left the same numbers, it would have been terrible, and if you just apply the 50% rule to the Pinellas County Appraiser's Office plus the nationwide global numbers, there would be a bunch of people that are going to be over the 50% rule, and then we're going to be a lot even behind the 8 ball that we are right now. So you're going to hear from a little bit from Marcy from the city, who's actually the one in the thick of it all, and she's going to talk about what she's doing to try to streamline this and some of the trials and tribulations and solutions that are going in on that one too. And then we're going to also hear from our Pinellas County Commissioner, Mr. Vince Nowicki, our newest elected official, and they're welcome to us for sure. And so that's what we're going to do. So let's go through the highlights of the steps in the processes so you guys will understand where we are. Step number 1, substantial damage inspections, right? We all know this part. A lot of you don't even know you had the inspection. Some of you think you did have the inspection. Some of you saw people at the inspection, and some of you didn't even know that you had the inspection done. Because people came into town, and if you weren't home, what do you think they did? Walked around your house, and they did the inspection. And they didn't have the privilege of getting in your home to see the condition of the home. They had only to go with the data that they had was a water line outside your house that was 38 inches high. So the only assessment they could make is that it's 38 inches outside, it's 38 inches inside. Based on my computer program, you're screwed, right? It's a little more technical than that, but that's kind of the thing. So without doing the assessment, that's all they had to go off of, and they've done that. So what's that? That's FEMA, right? That's FEMA, not the city. So step 1 was the substantial damage inspections, right? And a lot of us are going to get letters because we didn't see people come to our homes, and the letters are going to tell you what they're going to tell you, that you're either above or below the 50% number, right? So that's number 1. So that initial inspection has been done to all of us across the board. Step 2, the estimator tool and the data input. Now, the reports come back with all the software and saying, this is what we think the damage amount of your house is. And they enter the spreadsheets and they tweak it and they go. And this is where Marcy is going to spend some more information telling you about the situation, about how she tweaked the numbers, how they're doing the quality check, and how they made it more applicable and still compliant for FEMA, and hopefully to get everybody back into their house. And then the next one is what we're all pretty much waiting for right now, is a step 3, which is to get the substantial damage determination and the letters that are being issued right now. Has anybody who's received their letters? Anybody in here so far? Nobody here has that. Saw a couple of them. Marcy's going to talk about that today. And then that's going to be line-by-line assessment of exactly the damage amounts for your home. And that's going to compare to the number that they have from the 50% rule on the FEMA letter. And then you're either going to be above that number or below that number. And if you're above that number, you're going to have an appeal process. If you're below that number, you can rebuild. Right? So it's a pretty straightforward concept, but we're all sitting in phase 3 right now, waiting to find out what the judgment call is going to actually be. And then if it's not going well, those numbers don't come well, the next step is to go request a reassessment. That's to get the actual cash value appraisal for your home, to get that number up as high as humanly possible. And then you get a contractor to come in and give you the prices of exactly what it's going to take to repair your house. And hopefully that cash value appraisal is high enough and your contractor number is accurate enough that it's going to be under that 50% number, and you can go get a permit from the city and put your house back together. Right? So that's the 4 steps that we're doing across the way. And so that's just the current status that we're sitting in right now. And what I'd like to do is, Vince, since you're here, would you mind saying a few words to us and just a few minutes to just tell us how things are going from your perspective and what you'd like to say to everybody here? And then at the end of all this, it's going to be a lot of Q&A that we can answer the questions we can answer, okay? So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. So for those of you that don't know, my name is Vince Nowicki. I was just sworn in 2 days ago to the Pinellas County Commission, and my first day was yesterday. Yeah. So I'm not gonna lie or sugarcoat anything. I'm in a lot of the same position that a lot of you folks are in, with not getting clear information and everything like that. But I've been working with the county administrator, the county attorney, in unincorporated areas or cities that have contracted with the county to deal with inspections. My office is committed to working with anybody, any residents, especially the ones that voted for me, and even the ones that didn't. We're happy to work with everybody, and so it's just good to come and talk to folks and listen to other things besides baseball. So, so I'm looking forward to working with everybody. Sorry I don't have the magic wand to fix everything. I'm excited, former Mayor John Hendricks, my first official action was actually to appoint him to a land use committee with the county. So I think we're a little bit better off to have him serving on that committee. So, yeah. So thank you, everybody, and looking forward to working with you. And feel free to reach out to my office, call, text, email, anytime. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. Poor guy. He starts his job in the middle of this whole transaction, but it's going to be an interesting ride, and we know your leadership is going to be awesome for everybody here. So speaking of county commissioners, former county commissioner, Mr. Jay Beyruti is here with us today. Jay, you want to come on up and talk about what we're what we're looking through from your perspective? You've been here, you battled a lot in the county and all.
There you go. I would love to. Thank you, Jeff. Hi, I'm Jay Beyruti. Live on the beaches for the last 40 years. Got married on the beach. My kid was raised here. My business was on the beach. So, I used to get lost when I leave the bridge.
Okay.
And, we had it pretty bad now, but a lot of you that lived here for a long period of time, this is the first one that really got us. And we were expecting it, and really at the end of the day, I know we are all anxious and mad and see what's this wait for, but I think we're gonna all go through it and make it happen, and we're gonna try to help you and give you as much answers today as we can. Jeff, you want me? Okay, there is a point. You want me to go through my point that I discussed with you?
Yeah.
Right now? Okay. There is something very important. All of us will ask the question, why are we waiting, right? Why don't you give me a permit when you go? And the question that we get from the city is that we need the letter that they do the damage assessment that we do not have. We need that letter because you cannot build over 50%. If you're damaged over 50%, they're not gonna allow us to build. We have to raise our home. But there is an answer to that. It's not right, in my opinion, to make everybody wait. You're out of your home. It's a lot of hardship. A lot of them are homesick. We wanna go back. The cities, for their own sake, they are worried to, bend the rules or don't meet FEMA expectation when it comes to the 50% rules, and you lose your pool to be into the FEMA insurance, national FEMA insurance. And then we do get the credit. Usually municipality get credit, 5–10% on the insurance, which is very important, and I understand their point of view. We need to have that insurance to be able to buy and sell or insure our homes. I was talking to Jimmy Petronis. He's the chief executive officer in Tallahassee, and he's the head of the insurance companies also that manage them. And he told me, he said, there is not that much of an appetite for private insurance. So we have to make sure that everything is right to preserve the insurance pool, and Madeira, anybody, any beach city is still will benefit of that. Now, there is still a main thing. If you go over to the city, there is two things we need to accomplish. The assessment of our house, how much our house is appraised. That's easy to get. I don't know if you guys all know, some of you do. If you go to Pinellas County Appraisal, right, and you search your home, there is a new window that will pop on the right hand of the screen. And there is that letter that's what FEMA is looking after as your home assessment. There is that letter that tells you how much your home, not your land, how much your home is worth, and exactly will tell you how much you can build. Like if it's assessed for 200, it will say you cannot build over 400,000. The letter will say specifically you cannot build over $200,000. Now they keep telling us, no, you have to wait till you get the damage assessment. But in reality, like Jeff said, the damage assessment, most of it, if they did not get into your house, is really a projection or an estimate. Now they have a rules to it. If your assessment is higher than the 50% rules, you can do two things. You can hire a private private appraiser, and usually he can give you an appraisal higher than what you need. The other one, if you don't want to hire a private appraiser, you can go ahead and call the Pinellas County Appraisal, and they will send somebody and give you a little bump if you are a few $1,000s off. Now, as far as the cost, you can get a building inspector certified and give you exactly how much your house is going to be. And that's the point that we are arguing, and we're trying to make sense why you make people wait. If I have my assessed home and I know exactly what I can build, and if I can bring you a certified builder that tell me it's gonna be less than 50, that's what's gonna drive, that's gonna work. And the city will be protected, and we don't have to wait till that letters come out. But from what I understand, that letter is already coming out, right? Some people got that letter. So that's, and I heard from Bill today that he went over, can I tell him that? He went over, did exactly what I'm telling you. He gave them the appraisal of his house. He gave them the contractor bid. It was less than the 50%. They allowed him to do it. There is no risk to the municipality or to the cities if they do that. You don't have to, if FEMA told you you have to wait, you don't have to wait. The people that have the decision, the ultimate decision, are your own elected official right in here.
So, I don't mean to interrupt, so we could go to the city and say, we can go to the city of Deer,
No.
we can say, this is how much it's gonna cost, and it's way less, in my case, it's a condominium, all
No.
the units are fine, we just have some stuff
That's-
downstairs.
This makes sense, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
And it's not gonna affect any of your FEMA ratings. So what they do, everybody tell you what FEMA does. FEMA will come over 2 years from now, and they will pull all the permits from the municipality, not you, and they will look at them. They see how much the house is assessed, how much the permit was pulled for. And if the city issued permits over the 50%, then the city will be penalized, which means all of us will be penalized. But if they do what we're telling them, do the right thing, like my house, and they're not giving me a permit yet. It's assessed for $650,000. I can do $325,000 to fix it, right? To do the sheetrock and replace my kitchen. It's $20,000. It's way far cry from $250,000, and they tell me, no, we're gonna wait for the letter. It doesn't make sense. But I was encouraged by hear what Bill did. I'm not saying they will do it, but if you give them these two numbers, we should be okay. Thank you, and we'll open it up for the questions.
Let me walk through this example. If you haven't done this, do this real quick, because this is going to be very important for most of the things we're going to talk about tonight. You go onto the pcpao.org website, and you pull up your address. This is just a random house, right? This is not mine. This is not anybody I know's. So this letter pulls up, and it says, here's the value of your structure, here's the value of your features and your land. The preceding value allocation would allow repairs or improvements not to exceed $147,952, okay? That's your golden number. And so you got to figure out, if you go over that number, the city may not give you a permit. They may want to give you a permit so badly, but they cannot based on the FEMA rules that we're under right now. So this is your golden number. So you got to figure out, can you get everything done that FEMA said is wrong with your house for that number? And if you can, you'll be able to get permits. If you can't, then we have different strategies to go to on this one real quick, okay? So quick question here.
What number is that? Is that in 1, 2, you got a substantial damage letter, estimator tool, which, like? 3.
You're waiting for the answer to number 3, which is your evaluation number. This is, you're gonna get a letter that says, your number here, and you're going to be 58% or 62% or hopefully 28% or 36%. You want that number to be under the 50% rule. If it is, you're golden. If it's not, you're not dead. There's strategies to get you okay, but we have to everyone be okay on how we actually do this.
If they don't make that 50%.
Hang on 1 second. So the short answer: what happens to the half? You're not over. If you're over that 50% rule, we'll get there. You're going to have an appeal process to see if you can get over that number, and if you can't get over that number, you're going to have to become FEMA compliant, which is a nice way of saying you got to tear your house down or pick it up on stilts and raise it up to be out of the floodplain, right? That's the rest. So that's why this is an important number strategy here. Yeah.
Yeah, who decides what the minimum standards are for a certificate of occupancy?
The building department for certificate of occupancy. The standards for the number from 50% rule is FEMA in their spreadsheets. So there's two different rules going on here.
Let's say I just want to put a countertop and a sink in my kitchen.
That's a good question. I'm gonna defer that to Marcy for just a second, and then, but yes, there's rules. You're putting it back to the condition that it was prior to your house. Now, what if you don't want to? I'm with you. What if you say, I had a $20,000 slab of granite imported from Zimbabwe, and I'm fine doing a butcher block from IKEA now, right? Should I be able to do that? I think the answer is yes, but I don't think it's the way it is right now. So one of the things we're talking about is how do we get some logical, real reform that doesn't cause hardships. Now, that may not apply to this storm, may apply going forward, but we do have a new administration coming in that might prevail some logic in the equation that we could use. So.
I do have a couple of clients that have received their substantial letter.
Yeah.
And it appears, it does not say anything about this is what we are saying your house is worth. The letter states that we have determined that you are below the 50%. And then it's a 21-page document that tells you what you need to do. And it's basically saying you're either accepting what the property appraiser says your value is based on this document.
Yep.
And if you disagree with it, the appeal process is to
As
get
follows.
your ACV, your actual cash value appraisal, and submit it with your building permit, and that is your appeal. It's not a different process than
That's
that,
right.
but that's what it is.
And they will accept it.
And yes, and they will accept that because you're going to go in and say, this is not enough, right? And there's no way I'm going to be able to fix my house up for that. And this is a good number, by the way. I think Marcy will tell you that on average, I think the damage assessments are coming to $80,000 to $100,000 a house is what you're probably going to see, right? So this would be fine. The problem is, let's go next door for just a quick second here, and let's go to a tougher scenario. Let's go to the one immediately next door. Well, now this is a different one. So this is. Oh, you want to go there? All right, we'll go to a real good example right there. So let's do this one for now. 359. All right. So this FEMA letter on this house here is. What's going to happen? What's going to happen to this house? One of two things. Okay. Now let's be realistic. When we're talking about reform, we're going to have to be realistic too. This was a house that was built in '53. It's a wood frame on little blocks, right? It's in trouble, right? The reality of, I don't care who you are, no one's going to argue the logic that that house might have to come down, right? And it's a sad state of affairs, but I think the damage is going to be big enough on a home like that that there's nothing you can do. You go get an appraisal, it's going to be hard to get that number up high enough to justify the 4 feet of water that came through that house. Now, but that's an anomaly. There's not a ton of these 900 square foot wood frame homes, right? We're talking about the majority of them are CMU, concrete block built, 1,000 square footers, 1,200 square footers, a couple stories, and we have a really good fighting chance to get our houses okay, rebuilt to be back in them, which is I think what a lot of people want. And some of you say, I don't want to do this anymore, I want to rebuild anyway, then this isn't as important to you because you want to rebuild anyway. But for those of the rest of the world that wants to put their house back together and have the opportunity, this is the fight that we need to understand. The strategy is big and it's real about how we do that. So if you go back to the one next door, and we're going to look at it and say, all right, what do we need to do now? Let's just pick another, a random house. Let's just pick just this one. Just random house, same neighborhood, Spokane Drive, for example. So this house here, 244. What do you think? Good or bad? Good. Right? So this is the logic we're talking about. Should this type of person have to wait 4 months to be able to put drywall back in? Probably not. These are the type of things I think you'll hear from Marcy in a couple minutes too, that it's a good way to fix this as well. Right? So this is the 50% rule numbers here. Now yep. This is Bill Carnes, by the way, Beach Builders. Yep.
Can you mention to them what Mike Twitty said at the other meeting we had here, and that you can go on to the county website and request that number be increased, and he said they automatically, they do it, it's very fast.
Very little.
Yes.
But it'll get it up. From what he was saying, some cases where they were 60 were going up to 90. Things like
Right.
that. But that's a good first way, because that's a couple clicks on your mouse and you can get that number up just by going onto this website right here.
If you're close, right? If you think
you're
you want a $10,000, $20,000 bump should be enough, but a lot of them are going to be not enough, right? Yes, where is that? Right there. Request property review. Okay. There you go. That's on the sites. So that's the opportunities here. Now, when you get closer, and you look at the strategies here, this is a good one right here. This is a nice house. This is a friend of mine down the street. He has a $57,000 number. This is a concrete block house, right? That is a nice house, right? I mean, it's a decent, nice house. It's going to be really hard to fix that house for half of $57,000. It's going to be impossible to fix that house for $57,000. So you either say, that's it, I'm okay with it, it sucks, I got to rebuild, or you say, no, I don't want to rebuild. I'm going to go get an actual cash value appraisal who's going to come in and say, let me see the actual granite you had before. Oh, you had Moen faucets. Oh, you had that type of floor. Oh, look at the nice cabinets you had. Oh, that has real actual cash value. I'm now going to change this number, and it's real. There's no BS, right? It'll get up to $102,000 or whatever he can get it up to based on reality. He's going to go with an actual cash value of that home to pump that number up. This number was never intended for the purpose that we're sitting in right now. Right? It was never intended for this one. Now, so the rules are changed. So now the city's saying, please, all I have to do is be FEMA compliant. Cover my butt, my political butt, and make sure that I have what I need in the file to prove that I was okay to give you, Mary Ann, a permit to rebuild. So I need to see an actual cash value signed, sealed appraisal for $100,000, which means now you have $50,000. And I need a contractor bill from Bill Carnes or whoever for Gretchen to get the contractor to go in and say, I can do all this work for 48 grand, and it's got to be real. They're licensed people. They can't be fraudulent. It's got to be real stuff. Now you have an actual cash value plus a contractor bid, a real signed one, and now you go to the city and say, here you go. I'm under with a real bid, and they're going to say, thank you, in the file, go get your rebuild permit and have a nice day, right? But if you can't give them those things, they can't do anything. Does that make sense? Right, question?
It does, but with that money, do you have to become code compliant?
No. No, this is a good question. With that money, do you have to become code compliant? No. This allows you to rebuild without becoming, you don't have to be FEMA compliant, right? You're not going to become over the floodplain, right? You still have to have a safe home, right? But the way it was.
You don't have to put new windows in, old doors. You don't have to
Correct.
put new doors in. You don't have to replace the roof.
Right. You could bring it back to the way it was before.
Yep. You just have to put it back the way it was before the storm.
Yes, the way it was before the storm. Now, if you have totally damaged windows and it comes up the assessment that the windows are blown out, and if you have to put a new window in, it has to be code, then it might have to redo all of your windows code compliant. So those are the anomalies that we get through. The normal homes, you're going to be able to deal with it. Real quick, I'll come back to you in a second. I'm going to give you the mics too.
So Jeff, all the property around our area is 10 times worth more than the house.
The dirt.
Yes, exactly, and you know that, and so you can rebuild on it, and your property's worth, if you have a property over by us, it's probably worth at least $600,000, $500,000
Yeah.
if you tear the house down. So take it from there.
That's if you want to tear your house down, right? Every one of our homes is very valuable, mostly because of the dirt underneath our homes, right? All of our value, our dirt is worth way more than all of our homes. There's no exception to that rule. So if you want to rebuild, we'll talk about that later, you can use the equity in that land to get a really favorable loan to rebuild. But if you don't want to rebuild, these are the strategies to make sure you can put your house back together and you can deal with it a little bit later. Let's get by.
Money from them, and then you can
Get your insurance money.
rebuild.
That's right.
Hear that?
So is there a way to get your structure value, if you've got an appraisal, before you get your FEMA letter? Can you get that turned in before and shortcut the appeal process?
Yes. Can you, if you haven't gotten your letter yet, and the city is still processing the letters to send out, they would welcome the ACV appraisal right now because it makes their job a little bit simpler, so they can have professional reliance on a real number that can go into their file that they could say, look, I've got a certification that their actual cash value is here, right? So Marcia, they'll tell you that specifically on that one. Yes, if you can give them a ACV appraisal at a high number, and you could give them a contractor bid signed, you just made your life so much simpler rather than waiting for this letter to come back that you're under. Now you got to go get an appraisal. Now you got to go find a contractor. Now you got to get back in queue behind the 700 other homes that are still waiting to get their first letter to get the whole deal on this one. Where do you submit that? To the city. Sorry. Question. Good. Hey, Doug. All right. There you go.
Okay, so my original.
All right, shh. If you guys, I want to try to keep the answers here coming.
Yeah, so my original cash value was 124. I wanted to get that number up, so
Yep.
I hired an independent appraiser.
Okay.
Who has been doing this for 30 years. I did everything right. That number went up over 200. I submitted it, and the building department has denied it. And he said out of 70 appraisals he's done in all the other surrounding cities, Madeira Beach is the only city that has denied the appraisal. And I have sent them 3 different explanations of that, different ways that he had formatted it, and it still has not been approved.
Okay.
So that's the building department here in Madeira.
I don't know the answer to that. I know that they have to have it in a certain format. I can maybe let them talk about that.
He's changed it 3 times and they still haven't accepted it.
Is that right? No, I don't know.
He says it's the same way he's done it for every other surrounding appraiser.
They needed a certain way. Doesn't have to be a certain appraiser. It's got to be a certain appraiser that's licensed to do a certain specific type of appraisal. If they were, I don't know. That's something that we have to.
I think they would have told her that. I think they would have told her that he wasn't him.
You would think they would have turned over. Yeah. If you know what, I don't know it's got to check a box. Yeah, we're just figuring it out on that one. It's got to be it is. Question? Yep.
I've heard this a lot brought up at meetings, but I don't think I've heard a clear answer. Does the actual cash value appraisal increase your taxes if you're arguing that your home is worth more, right? No. Okay.
Well, the question was, when you get an actual cash value, I go from 57,000 I go get my structure's worth $114,000. I go get an actual cash value appraisal. It raises it up to $250,000. Does that increase my taxes?
No.
Not initially.
But the
Not
value
if you get the
consideration,
private guy.
if you do the value consideration on the Pinellas County Property Appraiser site, it could, because now it's with the property appraiser.
Correct.
All right, do you hear the nuance there? If you tell if you ask the appraiser's office to increase your appraisal value, you're pretty much asking for an increase in assessments, right? If you're bringing an actual cash value just to the city so they could check the boxes in FEMA files, the property appraiser's office probably isn't going to see that, and I'm not going to say any more than that. That's
He recommended that last meeting he was here.
And he said it's not going to hit. They're not going to attack that.
It would not, no.
Good. So if you want a fighting chance of getting your house rebuilt, you have to do the actual cash value appraisal and get it in there, and then contractors. Question?
Yes, I heard from an architect reference to something about a natural disaster and the 110% rule, rebuilding your home, not to have your taxes increased.
Correct. So the question you want to, Mike answer that one. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I talked to Mike Twitty about this myself. My name is Mike Wyckoff. I'm a real estate broker as well. I was past president of the Association of Realtors. I'm very involved in realtor stuff. I talked to Mike about this, and the way it works is if you do have to tear your house down, people are very concerned about the new house being substantially more valuable and their taxes going up. As long as your living space doesn't increase by more than 110% of what it was, your Save Our Homes cap will still stay in place, and you won't get reassessed at the new higher value. It'll stay there. So your Save Our Homes cap will stay in place. You won't go up more than 3% a year. But if you tear down a 900 square foot house and build a 3,500 square foot house,
You're asking for it.
Yeah. So that's where the 110% is. Living space, right? So not garage, but it also doesn't count your new garage that's underneath your new house that's all garage.
That's right.
So you get a lot of extra space in your home, but not living space.
Perfect. Good answer. Yep.
Does that only apply to homesteaded houses?
That does.
Because
Yes.
the Save Our Homes cap only applies to
The
homesteaded
question is,
properties.
does it apply only to homesteaded properties? Yes, it does on that one. Question.
So for us, our biggest cost that we have come across is electrical. And when we were out at the house pulling things, somebody from the city came by and said, no, all your electrical would have to be up to code, which then would be rewire the whole house. But if all we are doing is putting the plugs exactly where they were, and I don't know if we do we just have to replace it as is, or would we have to make electrical up to code?
I'll hand this to the contractor to answer this question over there. So what do you say to that? Do you, when you've got water receptacle damage in there, what says the repair? This is Gretchen.
I'm not an electrical contractor, I'm a general contractor. So let me just clarify that. There is a lot of different understandings, and it really depends on the building official. But per code, any wire that was submerged in water has to be changed. So there's two options that are being recommended by myself and my electrical contractor that I work with. Number one, you cut the wire above the flood lane and you put your receptacle up high. It's not an aesthetically pleasing situation, but that's your cheapest option to raise it. We are not asking you, you should not be able to, or should not have to bring that up to code, because you're just raising it where it was and bringing it up.
Can we jump from one box to the other?
If you do not want to have your receptacles raised, you have to go back into the junction box in the attic, and you have to refish your wire all the way down to have your receptacle in the current location where it was.
Yeah, but some of them are above water line and then they might jog down.
Any wire that was submerged in water is supposed to be changed. Your box in the wall, if it is metal, has to be changed and brought to code, which is plastic. Any of your wire nuts, any of your receptacles or the outlets that were covered in water have to be changed to be current.
And what about, air conditioners?
Yes. Because chances are your disconnect box, which is electrical, is submerged in water.
So everything up 8 foot then?
Not 8 foot, 4 foot.
We have some great visitors in the back of the room. We've been blessed with royalty, should we say. So we have, of course, Doug. Mayor Anne Marie Brooks just joined us. They had a meeting at the City Hall. Thank you guys for joining us. City Manager Robin Gomez is here. Commissioner Eddie McGeehan, Commissioner Kushkavahi, we've got, and Marcy, the queen of the hour, Marcy Forbes from that one, is here from the city. And just so you guys know, the city takes a lot of heat right now. And they're the easiest one to take the heat because they're there. But I can tell you, I know every one of these people very, very well. They care so much about you getting into your homes, and emotionally, they're wrecks to get you back in your home as fast as you want to be in. They're trying to get you in. They're stuck with rules they wish they didn't have to be stuck with FEMA, and the rules been changing, and they've done a lot of things behind the scenes to make sure that it's easier for you guys to get back into your homes. So if you haven't seen that or known that, please know that. And they were very nice to show up here tonight to kind of talk about some of the things that are happening from their perspective, to help you guys get back into your houses, to understand what's going on from a FEMA perspective and from the city perspective on that one. So if you guys would like to say a couple words, I'd love to have that. So, yeah. Who's first?
I was going to say something. Somebody asked about the HVAC unit.
Let me give you the mic because we're broadcasting too. Thanks.
So with the new building code, the Florida Building Code, it does require that if your HVAC is damaged by flood, then it has to be elevated to base flood elevation plus 1 foot. So you will need to have a survey, and you will need to know what your elevation is. That is a Florida Building Code requirement. It is new this year. We've worked with the Pinellas County Licensing Board to get that out there to all contractors. Please do not let anybody tell you they can replace your condenser at grade or 2 feet above grade or 4 feet above grade. It is going to depend on your elevation that will drive that. You will need that information.
So do you put it on your roof, or do you have to build a platform, or does it depend?
So you could put it on brackets, depending on what your elevation requirement is, or you could put it on your roof. It does require, with those additional structural drawings or signed off drawings on how it's going to be mounted and how it's going to be strapped down.
And I think we talked about this one day. What if your roof is not above that level? It's got to go even higher, doesn't it?
Correct. Regardless of your scenario with your structure, that condenser unit, and if the air handler is fine, then, but it does trigger the requirement too that your condenser unit and your air handler have to talk to each other in the same efficiency rating. So if your contractor tells you that because your condenser got fried, they can't find it doesn't match the air handler, you could end up in a situation where you replace both, and that is happening.
And if you replace the air handler and the condenser's 11 foot up, but the air handler is not, that's okay?
So if your air handler is being replaced, well, that gets a little tricky. So, but technically, if it wasn't damaged by flood and is just being replaced to match the condensing unit, then it could ideally be back where it was, because obviously it didn't get damaged during the flooding. But if it is damaged due to flood, it will have to match the condenser elevation. If it survived it, then it will probably survive the next flood, so it could go back in place, but it would be a new air handler. That is my understanding.
But
Okay.
how can you put the air handler outside of the structure?
You don't have to.
No, it'd be inside. It would be.
It has to
Yeah, you
match
could
the
put it in
same
attic.
efficiency rating, not
Yeah,
the same height.
efficiency rating, not same
Just the
height.
condenser has to be up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes, correct.
Hey,
Yes.
Marcy,
efficiency
can you come up and just for a high level update?
Yeah, so our interpretation, and we've, the whole, with the air conditioning units, we spoke with every building official and, every location. We are following the Florida Building Code, so it is base flood elevation plus 1 foot. Though a community may have a higher freeboard, like we have 4 feet, we are not asking you to do that with the mechanical equipment. You strictly have to meet the Florida Building Code, which is your base flood elevation plus 1 foot.
Which is how many feet? Well, it depends on where you're.
Ballpark. As an example, though.
Depends. So if you're.
I know.
So let's say you pull up your FEMA flood map and you're in AE 10. So that means your outside condenser unit would have to be at an elevation of 11. If your finished floor is already at a 5 foot elevation, you can expect your condenser unit to be 6 feet above that on the outside. Does that help? So you're talking about elevation, so just keep that in mind.
So our elevation can be found on a FEMA flood map, or do we have to pay to get a survey done?
So you can find out your FEMA flood elevation from the FEMA map. In order to get your finished flow elevation, you can see if you have an old set of plans, or if you've recently redone your seawall, you may have that. But if you can't find it through another means, you will need a survey to determine that.
And is a way around, let's say this is too much, what about mini splits?
You can do mini splits. Yes, you could do mini splits, and typically those are elevated. So if you get into that situation, that's a great question.
Because if you could put a mini split into a 120 plug, then
Yeah, so that. Yeah, you would still end up with, because you're replacing it due to flood. So the expectation would be whatever exterior equipment you have would need to be BFE +1, is my understanding. Even with the mini splits, if they were, if you're replacing a unit due to flood, you need to get it out of flood's way.
One of the things I'd love for Marcy to say is she was here and got hit by all these crazy FEMA rules, right? And all the spreadsheets and all the things. And I think it would be interesting to see, from your perspective, some of the things that they haven't seen that you've gone through to try to help the city where you're negotiating with some of the spreadsheets and the numbers and the values that were given from a national number that you're like, that doesn't fly here, putting Southwest Florida numbers to it and just trying to apply logic to it to help this number be as realistic as possible to help them get into the house. I don't think people know you well enough to know some of the things that you're doing. You want to maybe just take a second and just say some of the things that you can say?
Okay,
She's
I'll
like,
give you
no.
guys 3 minutes and you fall asleep.
All right.
So the tool that we've been asked to utilize, we're utilizing the same tool as Pinellas County. What that does is that provides us efficiency and communication. We're all talking apples to apples. The tool is a tool created by FEMA that we're utilizing, and what it does is it looks at your structure and it says, okay, you're a slab on grade, masonry walls, and it assigns every element in your home a value. And then we say, okay, your slab wasn't damaged, so 0, so you don't have any damage there. So it goes through and it does that, it assigns every element a value. Then based on our research and what we've seen on your property, we then say, okay, it's damaged not 12%, but it's 5%, 15, 20. That data lives only on my computer in that software. It's not talking to anything else. It's not talking to the 6 other people I have entering data. So every day then we have to export that data to an Excel sheet, combine all that data, then repurpose it so that everybody in the morning knows who's done what. And then we have to track how the properties we're doing them and doing them in order. There's just I'm amazed at the amount of data that we're having to touch that there's not a better system in place. Going into next year's storm, my goal will be to not have to do it in this process. But it is very time consuming. It requires us to look at multiple property information, such as Pinellas County Property Appraiser. We're also looking at the dashboard that the sub-consultants created when they were doing the damage assessments. We're looking at the FEMA flood map. So we're having to look at all of these different data points, as well as the individual home information we have related to your structure. So it's data heavy, and that's kind of what drives the amount of time it's taking for you to even get your determination.
Are you still waiting for this assessment letter, or you already can move forward if somebody give you an appraisal and give you a bid from a contractor that is below the 50%?
So we're trying to kind of do everything.
Can you repeat that
order.
question just for online?
Oh, yeah. So he's asking how our process is impacted if we are provided with a appraisal and a contractor's construction value. If we haven't got to your property and during our assessment, if we find out that you've submitted an appraisal and we can use your appraisal number and your appraisal meets all the requirements that are there, we will insert that data to determine your percent damage, which in most cases, it will help move the needle for you not to be substantially damaged. We will use that if we have it. If we don't, right now, our goal is to try and get out as many notifications as possible. Tomorrow, we will post to our website that if you have a structure value that is equal to or greater than $300,000, you do not have to wait for your substantial determination notification. You can go right into submitting for your interior remodel permit. We will provide a link to the package. I am not asking anybody for one more piece of paper than I absolutely have to review your permit. If I'm asking for it, I need it. I need a cost breakdown. I need to know what means and methods you're using to say this is the value of my structure. Is the Pinellas County appraiser value so high you can use that? Or did you have to get a private appraisal? That information will be in that packet to guide you through what appraisal you need. the information for the cost breakdown is autofill. In fact, I need to update that. But you can go in and fill it out. You do have to give us a breakdown because we have to be able to show FEMA that we walked into your house, you had this much damage. You submitted a permit that equates to fixing that much damage, and everything looks great, and we get it out the door.
So you don't have to wait for the assessment letter?
Correct. If you have an appraisal and you want to submit it,
That's big.
please submit that.
Hey, there will be this number, right? So it's the structure value,
So what'll happen
not the
with
50% rule number, the structure value.
Correct. The ACV value will give us, and sometimes they give you both, but it will give you the value of your structure that we will use in lieu of that. There is a specific appraisal. It is not the one you use to buy your home. It is different. And it is sometimes more forgiving than the one that you use to buy your home. The one that you use to buy your home dinged you if you had Formica. This appraisal doesn't. It says, hey, listen, they had Formica. What does it cost to put the Formica back in? So it's not a bad thing.
Are you still requiring demo permits? If they can come in with an ACV appraisal and a contractor bid, are they still having to go back to stage one and do a demo permit and get inspections and upload it through the MCO and then go through the next step that you're talking about?
So at this phase, if you have not submitted for a demo permit, but you feel like you have, if I can make my determination on your property, let's say you're not over 300 grand and I still have to review your property, I still need to do that determination. But if you've submitted everything for a permit package and I get to you on my list and it's your time for me to do my substantial determination and I know that you have that data in there, I will take that in consideration and we will do it all in one permit. So I will then say, okay, here's my determination. This will include your demo value as well as your permit value. So we are not going to double down on that at this point. It was helpful to have those demo permits. It shows our proactiveness and it created a project number for you by which we could begin capturing data.
Are you allowing for private providers?
So after your substantial determination, when you get that, you're allowed to use a private provider in the same normal way, but we would not support that if you have not yet had your determination yet, and we still have to review the permit package.
So the permit package is still done through you. You can't use the private provider for that, but for the inspection process, you can.
That would be where you would gain anything, if you gained it at all, would be if you wanted to go with a private provider, what you would get out of that is the inspection is where you would gain your benefit. I'll let you control Jeff who goes next.
All right. Okay, go ahead.
So I want to go back to a prior question, which was, what is the minimum standard that you're looking at when you're making these calculations? So if I decide I want to go back and live in my house and I don't need air conditioning and I don't want air conditioning, or I'm going to put wall units in, I'm going to put shaker units in, that I go buy it at Walmart. How does that work?
So you have two things going on here. You have the substantial determination, which is the substantial determination. The best way I can compare it is if like somebody totals your car. If the insurance agent says your car is totaled, you don't get to go, well, I'm going to put ball tires back on it, or I'm going to do cheaper spark plugs. And they go, oh, okay, it's not totaled anymore. So once we do the substantial damage determination, which is it stands on its own, we say, okay, you're not substantially damaged. Then you come in to pull your improvement and your repair packet. What I'm going to look for is that you are returning it to its functionality. Whatever air conditioning you want to go with, whatever countertop you want to go with, I need to see, though, you have to be able to return your home to its 2-bedroom, 1 bathroom, usable kitchen. I'm going to look for you to return it to its functionality. I'm not going to sit there and get mired down in too many of the details about style and things like that, but you have to be able to return it to its functionality as it was before. But that is what the substantial damage does. I'm saying you are not substantially damaged to the point where you cannot return your house to what it was before. So then you're just going to give me the improvement package that supports that you can get it back to its functionality within the value you're allowed to spend.
That's big. That's really big. So, Marcia, the example we gave before is before I had a $15,000 quartz crazy slab on my kitchen, and I'm okay with the butcher block IKEA now. As long as it's functional back to the same level, that valuation could help me if I have a contractor value, and I'm really going to put that back in and I still have a functioning kitchen. Is that okay or not okay?
So Here's how I view it, and I won't speak for any of my counterparts. But again, if I've deemed you not substantially damaged and you get to reinvest in your home, to live in your home, and you've decided that you no longer want a quartz counter, but this is the counter you want and it still serves the purpose you want, and when I go in to take the pictures to close out your permit, and that is what you installed, and you do have a fully functioning home just like it was before, I am perfectly fine with however you decide to rebuild. Again, I cannot speak for any other community or any other floodplain manager. This is the tact I am taking for my sanity and for the community. So that's kind of my mark. That's how I look at it.
Awesome. Eric.
Let's go back to AE10.
Okay.
So AE10 is 10 feet above ground level at the home?
So the AE10 is an elevation. So if the top of the water, or
The road's at 3.5.
yeah, so let's say the road is when you reference elevation, it's standard. The elevation is elevation is elevation. So you have a 3.5-foot elevation for your road. Typically, your finished floor is a 5-foot elevation. If you have to be at 11, then you can say, okay, I'm 5-foot elevation here. I need to go up 6 feet higher, and that will put me at that. You can't make an assumption, though, about what your finished floor elevation is. You need to know your elevation. So don't let somebody tell you, just put it up 4 feet. That may not be right, and I don't want that for the contractors as much as I don't want it for the homeowners.
You have to get a new appraisal or a new
Elevation certificate.
You need to know your elevation. If you have not changed your house and you have an elevation from 12 years ago, I'm okay with that. It's just an elevation. So.
That's about right. On your survey, when you got your survey, you probably got an elevation certificate on your survey. It's an elevation certificate. Then you may need to get a new one, just to be sure. Or err on the side of caution, right?
Yeah.
If you want to put a little bit higher, go a little bit higher. If you don't want to pay for the survey.
We are going to have to be able. It's going to depend on what flood zone you're in.
Depends on the streets area.
So if you're in AE10 and you're at a flood elevation, and your finished floor is at 4, you have to be at 11. So then you're going to have to add whatever those numbers are, because I don't do math after 7 feet.
Okay, let me add one thing real quick. I want to just clarify one thing that I don't think people know, or if they know, they don't think about top of mind enough. The reason why you're being so cautious, right, and careful is not because you necessarily want to. It's because you absolutely are required to by the FEMA rules. And can you talk about what happens if you just lackadaisically say, come on, get your permit, build your house back together, we're all good, forget about the audit that's going to come in a year and a half? Like, what would happen if you didn't hold the standards that all of you, mayor, commissioners, city manager, the whole staff, why are you doing it, and for what is our best interest of why you're doing that? Could you talk about that for just a second? Because I think it's important.
So several weeks ago when this first started, we had a phone call with Cape Coral. Cape Coral went through, a terrible hurricane disaster several years ago that they are still working through with FEMA. FEMA came in and audited them after the storm. Based on their audit, they felt like they did not do enough to enforce the rules that we're talking about now. So what that impacted was their ability to get reimbursed for funds extended out by FEMA. So you start looking at the money that we're going to get reimbursed for debris, the millions of dollars we've had to spend on getting the debris done. And you also risk, if they determine that you have not followed the rules to the extent by which you think we need to be following them, we could lose the ability to get flood insurance in the community, definitely lose any flood insurance discounts you're receiving, and then be denied help from FEMA in the future. So they feel like if you're not being a good community, then there are repercussions for that. At the end of the day, we're not going to be perfect, but we're going to be as good as we can possibly be, and that's why the documentation is so critical. We have LIDAR data, so they know the water inundation across the community. There's no denying that. We can't, sometimes during smaller storms, a few inches of water, that's all you got. But across the county and throughout the barrier islands, they know exactly how much inundation we have. They expect our permits and our code enforcement to reflect that we got all those permits. And if we didn't get those permits, we have put you in code enforcement. They will expect that. They will be looking for that. They are going to want us to toe the line on those items, and it was very clear during all the meetings that we've had.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. That's very important. City Manager Robin Gomez.
Thank you. Just to add, it's not just FEMA, and I haven't shared this, all of you are the first ones to hear this, including our members of our commission, but earlier today I did receive a phone call from the Florida Division of Emergency Management, the Office of the Inspector General. Essentially, it was about a 10-minute I guess, well before audit. And this was very specific to a little bit of what Marcy just said, but it dealt mainly with our overall response, mainly related to the debris removal, but to the whole city's response. What are you, and it was a series of about 15 questions that were asked of me and the city. And honestly, I almost didn't answer the call because I had no idea what the number was, but they're keeping track, and it's not just FEMA, it's the Florida Division of Emergency Management. The money that the city will be reimbursed for all of our FEMA expenditures actually flow through the Florida Division of Emergency Management. So not complying, not what Marcy stated, ensuring that we are all following the rules can have some significant consequences. As I said at a prior meeting, we can choose to go at this by ourselves. We will deplete our reserves within a matter of probably 2 years. We can choose to do that. Much better to follow all of these processes and make sure that everybody is understanding everything that has been communicated. Please feel free to ask questions. Come into City Hall. We are there, despite what may be out there, but we are there, and we just ask for appreciate. But we feel for you. Marcy and I have been through many, many storms. I was in college when Hurricane Andrew destroyed city of Homestead, Cutler Ridge, Perrine. I know what everyone feels. I understand that. So please continue to help all of us out. We're all in this together. So we will do everything we possibly can.
Hey, Robin, how much money to date, ballpark, has been spent on the cleanup? Just as put it in
We
perspective.
haven't received an invoice yet from the contractor.
Well, what do you think ballpark?
But
How many millions?
It's likely going to be at least $1 million, probably a couple. I mean, everything that it's going to be several $1 million in the end.
Right. And that's a big check to write. That would be, the converse side of this one, if FEMA doesn't pay that bill, guess who has to? All of us. And who wants their millage rate to go up and your tax rates to go up? Nobody here in this room. So that's one of the biggest reasons why they're doing the unpopular thing a lot of times is really ultimately the popular thing, because they're taking care of all of us by taking a few weeks longer to do it right versus putting us in a lot of jeopardy later, is I guess a short version of that one. So thank you. I know you guys are taking a lot of arrows, but we do appreciate what you guys are doing on that. Question.
I have a question about the whole contractor license, all that stuff. My father's been a builder all of his life, and now he's retired. We have crews. If we file everything with our own permits, we pass permits, we do everything properly. Do I need a licensed GC necessary? I mean, yes, electrical, yes, HVAC, stuff like that, but drywall, floor, like that. If we can manage it ourselves, we know how things work. We know how to make things happen the right way. If it's permitted, do I really need to have GC?
Let me relay that back to Marcy.
So a homeowner can pull a permit in the state of Florida. There's a caveat to that. If you pull a homeowner permit, you're not allowed to sell or lease your property for a year. That's in the Florida statute, so just as a cautionary tale, we do have disclosure statements in our permit package regarding that. The homeowner is required, if you pull the permit, that you must be on site, you must be watching the work. You are allowed to pull in workers that you manage and subcontractors that you manage. That is my understanding. I recommend in the morning, if you will, you can email the building department at madeirabeachfl.gov. That way they can succinctly answer the requirements that you will have to adhere to. But you do have some room there to be able to do that as a homeowner, but there are some, requirements to that.
If the homeowner filed for the demo permit, does that lock us into not being able to sell for a year?
No, I don't. If you just did the demo work and no repair, I don't think I would put that in an email question. We'll have to answer that. I maybe get into more legal verbiage with the Florida statute. I don't want to quote that, but I don't feel like it would, because I don't know that if, you know, but yeah, let's put that in an email question if you don't mind.
JJ,
I just have a follow-up on the
Let me get
building
to the question.
permit, owner building permit, just for clarification. Can an owner pull a mechanical permit? Like if they need electric work?
She wants to answer. Well,
Yeah.
I want to answer back to what she was talking about.
Let me get the mic back here because we got a lot watching online.
The building, and I'm gonna side for a moment for the building department, and obviously I am a contractor, but they are discouraging owners from doing permits for a couple of reasons, because you don't know Florida building code, you don't know exactly what's going on, and you're gonna ask 1,000 questions that's gonna inundate the building department. As a contractor, I do this every single day. I work with the municipalities. I understand. When you get your substantial packet from your determination, it's 21 pages long. On that is going to have the line item thing that's going to give you line item by line item by line items that's going to break down your material costs, your labor costs, and everything. If you hire a contractor, you submit that document and it takes care of 7 of that 9 pages. As an owner, you can file for your owner permit, and this is per the City of Madeira Beach documentation, that substantial damage document that just came out from a couple of my clients. You have to add 15% if you are an owner, and then you have to add 10% as a discretionary number for things that are unseen that you may have not have thought about. They assume that me as a contractor, that I cover that when I provide you with a quote. So understand that you may be able to get your drywall guy to come in and do it for $7,000, but add 15% and that added another 10%. And that's the same thing for every single line item that's on there. Where if a contractor gives you a quote, you're taking that quote and they take it for face value.
Good point. Good clarification.
Yes, and to her point, even if it is a homeowner or whoever submits the permit, just because you got a good deal on it and your uncle works at a tile shop and you're doing the work yourself, we cannot discount any of the work. We have to value it as if she gave you a quote. So we have to put that value to it, even if you're putting your own time into it and you got discounted materials. They do not allow us to take that into consideration.
How do you know though if it's discounted material or like if you're
It's got to hit their base mark.
Yeah, so we'll have base prices. So like if you submit something and you're saying, oh, you know, like it's $2.50 a square foot for drywall, we're gonna that's not really how it comes out. So we have gut check. Right.
There's
so
certain things though that like.
Right. So we'll have to gut check by the permit, and if it just seems off, we'll revisit and ask for additional information.
Okay.
Right. Because what you want to do is make sure at the end of the day there's going to be an audit on every single permit that you pulled, and the city has to make sure that it passes all the smell tests. If all of a sudden you see 42 cents a linear foot installed for flooring, it's not possible, right? So that's not going to pass during an audit. She might say, great, no problem, but she can't because it's not going to hit the spreadsheet guidelines that are going to guarantee $3 a foot or whatever it happens to be in there.
And to that point, I want to say that what Cape Coral experienced, and I don't want to keep referencing them, but they were kind enough to kind of share with us the real nitty-gritty of what they went through. Even on some of the houses, FEMA presented to them documentation that the permit that they approved wasn't done correctly because they have the sales photo of it being advertised online, being for sale for $1.2 million with marble tile, and we permitted it for planking. So they went that far to say, listen, you were wrong and we have additional proof you were wrong. So we do not want to be in that situation. And we will look for that during the final walkthrough. If we permitted one flooring and you have a distinctly different one that would have cost a significant amount more.
Yep.
But that goes back to my original question of that goes back to the question of if I don't want the marble
you're okay.
Counter in my kitchen and I go to the butcher block from IKEA, that's what I'm doing.
Good, but you have to do that. You can't just submit it at the butcher block from IKEA and then turn up with marble. That's the challenge. That's what Cape Coral people just tried to slide it through and then they get caught because
I am not going to take your butcher block block away, I can tell. I'm not,
Yeah. So that's the point. All right, more questions here. And definitely we're going to use, all right, you've been waiting. Ladies first, you're second. Make sure you talk into here because there are a lot of people watching online.
Marcy, does the amount that we paid for the remediation, you know, tearing out our drywall, mold prevention, all that, does that count at all into our 50% amount or not?
Great question. So online, does the remediation cost for tearing out drywall, and how about airs and dehumidifiers and all that other stuff? Does that count?
so that's another one where it can get a little dicey. But yeah, the demolition work that you've done to take out your drywall and remove those items from your home does count against your remodel value. So whatever you spend to take it out.
Even if you did it yourself?
Even if you did it,
Even if you
yes,
did it
especially if you did it yourself, because then I'm going to apply normal values because you hired somebody to do it. So I'm going to have to say, okay, I average, X amount of square footage, $22 an hour, and I'm just throwing that out there. But we do have to apply, even if you do it yourself, we have to apply a value to that. The demolition work is not, I mean, it does have to be captured in that valuation, yes.
Okay. All right, let me run back to who I promised here, the patient Florida man. All right, what you got?
Okay, so I want to go back to a specific thing that you talked about and around the permitting. So I submitted my demo permit a long time ago. It's been sitting. I uploaded pictures of all the demo I've done because it was on that little sheet of paper that I got when I went to City Hall. So what you're saying now is I don't have to wait for that demo permit to be approved, and my contractor can submit the remodel permit with the packet around how much it's going to cost and all that. And mine is 400 with a 250% rule. You're going to note tomorrow that I'm above the 300. So if I'm above that 300, which I am, and I already have that, then my contractor can go in, submit it for approval. And how long will that take?
Please hold your reply. Right.
Yeah. So in fairness, obviously the 300 number came from looking at some of the data that we are getting from the substantial damage estimate. So that's why we're putting that number out there. We felt like that was a safe value for homes not coming up substantially damaged or borderline. Yes, and tomorrow you can go ahead and submit that packet. Your contractor can go ahead and start a interior remodel permit and upload all the documents that we need. Those are online. We have a permit package that outlines everything that we need. How long does that take? So we have requested assistance. I have asked for another me and then 3 or 4, can't remember which number, plan reviewers. What I did too is I said that they can be remote. That will give us a greater chance of getting help, because everything we do is online. You're submitting through a digital portal. I don't need somebody to be, in fact, I don't have room for anybody in City Hall. So I am trying to figure that out. I am working towards giving you as residents metrics too on when you can expect to get your notification. We've had a really good week of getting our data in and entering it into the damage estimate tool and getting data out. It's getting the notifications out. My plan is to keep the substantial damage determinations going and start plucking 1 or 2 people, and if I can get those plan reviewers, I will start having them focus on getting those interior remodel permits out. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is, as she described, with the valuations, the line item breakdowns, quantity, cost. Please make sure that that is all in line and everything on that matches all the pictures I have and all the damage that was described in your home. So that's what we'll be looking for. The more clean, the more concise, the less confusing it is, the easier and faster it will go for everybody. Once we open it up, all of that documents are in there. Once we get to it and you've done it, it should be like the next morning you can get notification that your permit's there.
There's a little bit of follow-up to that.
All right. I think this is great, by the way. Just help streamline by finding a number to help these get pushed through. Follow up.
No, this is phenomenal, and obviously we all appreciate the work that they're doing to expedite this, but
Sorry.
So no, you're good. So I'm going to have my contractors submit the remodel. I already know how much the remodel costs because I just completed it about a year ago. And so can he just, okay, how are you going to do inspections? Is it going to be on-site or is it going to be pictures? Like it has been pictures before, even before the storms, like the drywall screw inspection, the electrical, all of that stuff. can he just go ahead and start knowing that he's going to get the approval? Because I already got the approval for the same exact work a year or two ago. Can he get started, take detailed pictures of everything that he knows that you're going to ask for, and then upload that to the portal when it happens so that we don't have to wait for your team to give us the approval we already know we're going to get?
I'm not touching that one.
So I will never in a public forum tell anybody to begin work without a permit.
Yes. Turn off the cameras.
Yeah. So having said that, obviously our caution is you always move forward at your own risk. I will not speak for the building official as to how he is going to handle these inspections and how he will intake data. What I will commit to, though, is getting with him tomorrow, because we've just now on the precipice of starting to really think about, okay, now that we're at a point where we're going to start seeing interior remodel permits, what does that look like? I will get with him to decide and share with the public what his expectations will be and what his allowances will be as far as picture submittals and sign-offs and things like that. So I'll commit to getting with him and giving the public a really good shot about what he'll be expecting once you feel like you're in a position to begin to move forward with the remodeling effort.
Is he doing virtual inspections for those, or is he doing in-person inspections?
So that's what I'll have to confirm with him, how his preference is to do them. Obviously, up to this point in time, he's been able to handle the inspections as they come. So I'll have him determine if he's willing to do the virtual inspections, picture inspections. I'm sure he's going to be open to whatever helps expedite it, but it's going to be at his professional comfort level, and I just don't want to speak for that.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I want to clarify, because one of the questions that I had asked is if we could use a private provider. The purpose of a private provider is you're using a third-party inspection company. They have their own building official. You submit with your permit application that you're using the private provider, and they do those inspections. It does cost a little bit more money, but it works in conjunction with the city, and it takes you off of the queue of having to wait for Frank to come out and do the inspections. You're using the private provider. I have one that I'm working with, and I upload it through the application that I have as a wholesaler through this private provider. I upload the pictures, and with 10 minutes, my inspections are approved, or they ask for additional documentation. So that is a way to circumvent having to wait for the city to do thousands of these inspections through all these different processes, and you're looking at between 2 and 5 inspections per home based on the remodel.
Thank you. And it's important too, all systems are going to be stressed, including the private providers as well. So just make sure you end up with a private provider who has done work in Florida. Make sure you kind of do have some comfort level. I had an experience recently where somebody thought they got impact resistant windows, and it's as easy as shining a flashlight up to the window to say that they are not impact resistant windows. So just be cautious about who you do utilize. I have no objections to private providers. Just please make sure you use somebody who is qualified to be doing work in the state of Florida, as I know we will have an influx of people who don't normally work in Florida.
One other question that's relevant in this one. So we're talking about the 50% rule and the look-backs. There's been a couple things about the look-back periods. Can you address that real quick? So somebody just mentioned you just did a remodel. You know what it's going to cost. How is that going to affect this?
So give a round of applause for your commission, because they have removed the look back. So we have no look back.
Does that apply to this storm though? Does that apply to this storm though, for sure?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we will not apply a look back if you happen to do any remodels and you're rinsing and repeating. Nobody's going to get dinged for any work that they've already done. Everything is going to be now just your interior remodel effort to get you back whole.
Very good. Questions? Here, I'll vote for you. That no look back period is huge, that repeal. So thank you, commissioners in the back of the room, for that again.
Do all the
Is this butcher block question again?
No. I'm moving on to the HVAC. Do all of the various elements have to be permitted at once? Or, for example, I've got an electrician ready to go. I've got his estimate. I bring that in, get permitted for that. And then my HVAC guy shows up, and then my plumber shows up, and then my drywall guy shows up. How does that work?
So Obviously, those will be looked at collectively because they're all part of the work to get you whole. So those, just to be clear, those are cumulative and will be added up. But if you are pulling an electrical permit, you're more than welcome to do that. I suggest that you just be perfectly clear that you know that you're not substantially damaged and you understand your spend. So once you start doing that, I would prefer you do it after either you're over 300 now or you've received notification that you are not substantially damaged. I don't want people to invest too much money only to be blindsided if you get a substantial damage notification. The majority of the properties who are getting those have low structure values, tend to not be the slab on grade, CMU. They tend to be the older, more wooden things, but in an abundance of caution, please do not invest a significant amount of money into your property until we know for sure that you can. I understand getting your power and water and HVAC. Just want to be very cognizant about all those, and do please make sure you pull the permits for those.
If you're doing owner-builder, why wouldn't you just do a general remodel and then add your subs instead of doing individual permits?
Yeah, I mean, however anybody wants to do their process. I try not to get too mired down in the permits coming. I mean, it's up to you guys how you want to do that.
Very good. All right, coming.
There's probably more efficient ways.
You'll be next. Here we go.
I have a question around the 50-50 rule. You said you would go over the example, what happens if I fall over the 50 rule?
What happens if we fall over, right? So let's role play that. So you're the example on the wall. This is a bad example, but so you've got a $50,000 spend. You get a letter that says you're over it, and you think it's going to cost you $68,000. Just by rule of numbers, you're not able to get a permit because your $68,000 is higher than your $57,000, right? So now you have to go get a strategy, and the strategy is to get an actual cash value appraisal to bump up that number higher than this, right? So if let's say your numbers to repair is $80,000, you're going to need to have a structure value of what? $160,000 in order to allow Marcy and her team to even allow you to have a permit to rebuild. So you've got to be able to check the box. Remember, because the goal is to make sure the city stays FEMA compliant, because we don't want to get ripped out of the National Flood Insurance Program and hurt everybody. So as long as you just know the game, it's got to be played the proper way. So actual cash value appraisal and a contractor estimate bids is another way to really guarantee it and make your life simpler. If I say, here's my actual cash value of $200,000 structure, which means I have $100,000 to spend, and here's my contractor bid for $87,000, now you're golden. Now she says, okay, box check, box check, box check, here's your permit, go back to life, right? So that's your strategy now, is be ready to go get an actual cash value appraisal, and then get some real contractor bids is probably an easier way to do it than do it yourself, unless you're experienced like you, right? And just get those bids, the real signed contracts with your appraisal to make it happen. Does that make sense?
I understand that process.
Yes.
I'm thinking, if I don't have that option to remodel, I have to go up.
If you don't have that, yeah, okay. So you get an actual cash value, and it doesn't come up high enough. She has to be, you're going to get a letter saying, so sorry, you tried. You have to become FEMA compliant. FEMA compliant is either raise it above base flood elevation plus the 1 foot, right? Or tear it down and build a new house, which means at that situation that you really have land value only left for your property. That property is no longer able to stay. It's not FEMA compliant in the area at this level.
That is a very important question.
Yes.
For that. If people decide to, Marcy, rebuild their house, right? They didn't make it through the 50%. Now we have an issue, right? Because it's an old house, the setbacks are different. Can they do it on the same footprint? Or that's huge problem if somebody is willing to comply.
Yes, so what we're cautioning people to do is once we're getting to that point, our code does allow for homes to be rebuilt in the existing footprint, provided you have a survey that indicates that. So we do have provisions in our code to allow for that. We oftentimes will try to negotiate, maybe if you're too close to one side, maybe see if we can get you in the middle a little bit, but we do protect people's spot on their property.
But don't tear your house down before you get the determination.
Do not tear your house down until you have a survey and you've met with us. No, if you are up against that point where you're being kind of mandated to do that, or you have no other options other than to do that, please, it would be good to set up a meeting with the city so that we can lock in exactly what you get back and the footprint you get back. I highly recommend that, especially if you have a duplex or a triplex. Oftentimes, those are now on what we call non-conforming lots. It's a non-conforming use on a non-conforming lot. There are still avenues by which we can save that, but we can only do that if we catch the property prior to it being demolished. So work with us on that. Make sure you come meet with us, or send an email. I have a great team, great planner who can send you an email back and get you all lined out with what you can do.
Very good. And to further go forward on that strategy, if that's going to unfortunately happen to a percentage of homes in town. It's an unfortunate reality that we're going to see with some homes. So when that happens, the strategy depends on if you have financing or not. If it's a free and clear home and you don't have a mortgage on it, you have a lot more options. There's going to be some people that have a mortgage on the property, and it's going to become very troublesome, and you're going to have to basically be upside down. And a mortgage that's on a home and a lot, you have no home anymore, you're just the lot, and the lot's not as valuable as the home and the lot, but the mortgage company doesn't care because you got to give a mortgage payment. So then you've got some problems, and you're going to need an attorney. That's where we have Tom Abraham here to answer questions when we get to that point of restructuring with the bank to try to make that happen, because you have a lot of value in your land, right? So let's say that you have that issue. We can work to make sure that negotiate with the bank to get that problem to go away most of the time with good strategy. Let's say you don't have a mortgage and you own it free and clear. It's been a legacy property in the family and it is what it is. Now you can apply the value in that lot has a lot of value. So that can be applied as equity towards a construction loan to rebuild a home. So you probably wouldn't have to come out of pocket really anything, because your down payment is your pledge of the equity in that land to be able to build yourself a brand new home. Now you have a mortgage at the end of the day to pay for that home, unless you pay cash for it. So there's a lot of strategies there when you get to that point. Or even if you're just done with this madness and you could rebuild, you're like, I don't want to do it anymore, you still have a lot of value in your land that could be applied towards a new construction loan when the time comes, right? So all's not lost if you are over this and can't recover from the 50%, and all's not lost if you just decide you don't want to do this anymore and want to rebuild. There's good strategies and there's good loan programs right now, that the 203H programs, we can get into that later, but there's a lot of good opportunities there. One second, I'll work the way back. Am I? You're coming next. You're next. You're next.
Sorry for butting in there. Just quick though, so if you knock it down and build it up and you go bigger than 10%, your tax bill is going to skyrocket, right?
Not skyrocket. It's going to be applicable in the same ratio that it is now, right? You're going to pay taxes on a higher valuation. Yeah, it's a more valuable
like
property.
Your regular tax bill plus the part that you made it bigger?
Correct.
Or they're going to say no?
On the part you made it bigger.
Okay, so you'll have your, let's say you got 2,000 square feet, you add another 500, you're going to pay taxes more on the
300 square feet.
300 square.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Before, did he remember it?
No.
No?
If you are going to raise your house, can you get a permit to go ahead and do all your remodeling now instead of waiting until the house is raised before you can do all the work? Like, obviously you're not going to use your garage anymore, so you're going to enclose your garage and make that into living space. Can you go ahead and start doing that now if you're going to raise your house?
Raise meaning lift up, elevate. If you're going to elevate your home, what's the process for that from your perspective?
So we were asked that. So yeah, obviously you can say it's easier to kind of do the remodel while it's at grade than get it elevated. So all I would ask is we would do the permit, but your permit has to include the elevation of it and the remodel. You would be allowed to remodel and then elevate it, but what I don't want to do is become vulnerable to you remodeling, changing your mind, and then not elevating it. So I need the permit to tie you to that elevation, and we can work with you on how you build that out.
Perfect. And now you guys see why, right? Because if you trick the system, it's going to be FEMA non-compliant, and you cause a big problem for the whole city on that one there. Yes.
Hi, Marcy. So I've heard a couple different stories on the electrical situation, all the way from Frank saying, if I can see the wire, basically saying, if I can see the wire, it needs to be replaced. He said that on the 23rd at our town hall meeting. So I've had a licensed electrician come in, inspect my property, and he said, I need to replace the outlets and the metal boxes, not the wires. Is that gonna fly?
Hold on, let me see where Frank is.
Frank? Yeah, good.
So, no, sorry, I'm joking, but I unfortunately, if, obviously our building official said one thing and you're getting a contractor who has assessed it differently, I would say you would need to get with Frank and tell him you have a quote from a licensed contractor who says that their professional opinion is you do not need to change that, and see how he addresses that. That's, yeah.
Good question. Question? Yes, next.
Thank you.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
All right.
Yeah, Hurricane Helene came through
All right,
here on
hang on.
September 26th, and I was not notified of the FEMA 50% rule till around November 1st. Meantime, me and my husband spent $30,000 with the demo and the mold thing, the AC, and the electric. We didn't know that we were just basic, because my 50% is 32,000, so I only got 2,000 left. And I'm not saying, I just wish I had known about the 50%, because that would have made me not spend 30,000 bucks.
Right.
But I didn't get notification.
So you're telling us a hypothetical story about a friend, right?
This is why we require demo permits, is that is our opportunity to communicate the cautionary tale. And so that's what we did with people who pulled the demo permits, is they were notified. And we still have people who do say they don't know about the FEMA 50% rule, but if you pull that demolition permit, you get that communication, you get that one-on-one, because we've had open hours for permits where people have been able to walk in 5 days a week and sit down with our team to get that information. So we do everything as a community. We have a lot of year-round events to discuss the FEMA 50%. Your insurance, do you have flood insurance?
I have flood insurance.
So
First I talked to FEMA when I went to apply. He said, get off the rip the drywall up, get it out of here. Didn't say anything about 50%. Then I took the flood insurance adjuster. He didn't mention it either. So,
Right.
So, and we do as a community, we're trying to get a little more proactive approach from the insurance adjusters. From everybody you interface with should be preaching the FEMA 50% rule from the moment you buy a home here on a barrier island to now. So it's really a very important thing, and I apologize that you did not hear about it sooner, but as you work through this, you can reach out to us, we can sit down, and it sounds like you probably should go ahead and pursue getting an ACV appraisal to continue moving forward with your home. But if you'd like to not do that, you can meet with us and we can kind of give you some information.
Cool. Okay.
How about in the situation where you keep a concrete block first floor and basically move a living room and a kitchen to the second floor? Is there anything that you would want to consider in that case?
So if your structure allows and you have a structural engineer review, you are more than welcome to vacate the first living floor, turn it into storage, parking, or access. So you get a spa, storage, parking, access at that level. Your next living level will have to be at base flood elevation plus 4 feet. We do have a 4-foot freeboard. But if you are able to retain the skeleton of your structure and build up, you are more than welcome to do that. Sometimes it's a little more tedious to navigate during demolition and remodeling, keeping the structure, but people do keep the skeleton down there and then go up for their next living floor.
Awesome. Okay. We'll do one last question, and then. All right, go ahead. For people.
Okay. All right, so
I'll repeat the question.
I just got our flood estimate today. It's 115. We're kind of like the example on the board. Our 50% is 56,000. I'm looking at getting an actual cash value appraisal to get that up. So let's say the 50% goes up to 115. I get my estimate at 115. If I can get work done for like 25 to 50,000, can I use that remaining money towards things that I want to do in the house?
I'm sure other people have this question. Or let's say, and this is kind of similar but different. Let's say I wanted to remove a wall between my kitchen and living room. Like, I don't want to put it back exactly the way it was because I didn't really like the wall right there. Am I able to take that down, or is that going to count against me?
Good question.
So you threw me off a little bit with the numbers examples you use. So are you saying that you get an actual cash value appraisal and now you have 115 grand to spend?
Well, right now I haven't done that. I have not raised my value because I was kind of waiting to see what would happen with these letters. But just today I got my flood estimate back and it's 115.
Who's your, when you say flood estimate?
Flood, yeah.
My flood, what do you call
That's
it?
a
Flood insurance?
big difference.
Okay.
Her insurance quote.
Gotcha, okay. Okay.
Good point.
What do you mean? I'm sorry. I think it's Florida Family Insurance.
Okay.
So anyway, what I'm saying is if they're giving me that amount of money to fix my house, and let's say it doesn't cost me 115,
I'm glad you brought that up.
use the extra to fix up my house the way I want to.
So here's what I want to continue to kind of drive home, because I want to make sure that there's a difference. So I have to determine if your property is substantially damaged. If I cannot switch gears and say that I do not think you were substantially damaged, then that's the first hurdle we'll have to cross. But if I say, okay, you're not substantially damaged, here's the pool of money you have, and you come back to me with a plan that gives you your functionality back and allows you to knock down a wall as well, you still have to do all of that within a reasonable pool of money. So if now's the time to take down a wall, I will not deny you that, but your remodel still has to fit in that bucket of money that you have available. And that's how it'll be reviewed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Your insurance proceeds have nothing to do with the value of your FEMA structure at all. Completely, totally different worlds. The value from your flood insurance companies has nothing to do with the valuation from FEMA whatsoever on this one.
Flood insurance company gives you 200,000, but your flood number here is 57. The left hand doesn't talk to the
Right.
right hand.
They don't talk.
Well, this ties in. I have a question about the young lady who hypothetically spent $30,000 already doing demo. So, is the calculation? We talked about the scenario where somebody could get the work done at a lower price than what the book value is. But what happens in a scenario? I know, for example, mold remediation companies that come in and maybe charge quadruple what it should be. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you overpaid, are you penalized for the overpayment, or should you be brought back to what the actual book value is for that calculation?
Ooh.
So I don't want to get down too many hypothetical rabbit holes.
Yeah.
I will say that we will do everything within our power to look at cost reasonably, and if we do feel like there is gouging or something that simply doesn't make sense, we will have to address that on a case-by-case basis. At the end of the day, I imagine myself sitting across the table with a FEMA representative, and if I can put my signature on something and defend why I made a decision, I will do that. So we are trying to be very reasonable with everything we're up against right now, given the quantity of data and information we're dealing with. I do want to say, talking about the flood insurance claims, so because most everybody has a federally backed flood insurance, we do get access to those claims. That is another metric that FEMA will look at if they say, listen, your structure received what we think to be around $115,000 worth of damage, but we didn't substantially damage you, and you rebuilt all that for 102 grand. Those numbers do have to make sense when they compile all of their data to come audit us. They will look at those factors to make sure that there is some continuity in everything that was done. To that point, I wish they did more to educate you as property owners what you were up against with the FEMA 50% and your allowable spend. But it was our experience in speaking with Cape Coral that all of that came into play during their audit.
Okay, good.
So if somebody, for example, the gentleman back here that a year ago renovated his house, and his letter says 57, but because he did his actual cash value and his insurance say gave him 200, would it behoove him to get that ACV so that everything would be in compliance, so that if he does get more money, he's covering his butt?
Yes.
Correct. Every opportunity we have to make sure that the numbers make sense and jive and protect you and the city at the end of the day, will communicate that, and we will look to try and close any gaps that we feel like are suspect, and draw attention to any permits that we've done. We want them to be, you know, on mark there.
Awesome. All right. Marcy, thank you very much for showing up tonight. I appreciate you very, very much. Yeah. And please know they're doing everything they can to help everybody get back as soon as humanly possible. Mayor Brooks, would you like to say something?
Yes.
Thank you. Come on, you come up?
No, not really.
No.
When you mentioned earlier the look back, did you mention permit fees?
No, please do.
So today, the commission had a special meeting, and we voted on two things. We voted to do away with look back on your build.
That's huge.
And we also voted to suspend all our second reading, so it is.
All right.
It
Passed.
it passed, to suspend all permit fees for storm-related work for 1 year from the date of Helene hitting us.
For
So-
residential and commercial.
Yes, we did not define residential or commercial, it was for everyone.
That's awesome.
So, listening to everybody, what I would say is, my just thought is that a year will come and go very, very fast. And when the substantial damage letters come out and you get that, be prepared to move the process forward so that you have the time to do everything that's needed. We did talk about in our first reading that if we met our 1 year mark and there were still residents that were in need of the permits to be suspended, that the commission could relook at that and vote possibly to extend it yet. But I thought that was a
Awesome.
big deal.
Very big deal.
So, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for showing up. What the look back period means? What it would mean to you is, let's say that before the storm, you remodeled your house, right? And you added a nice whatever to it, and it was a permitted work of $50,000, right? And no storm, no worries, no life is good. But enter Hurricane Helene, and now you go get your 50% rule. Before the commission just did what they do tonight, that 1 year, prior year of all the permitted work would apply towards your 50% rule. And if you put 50 grand towards your house in the last year, you would be screwed, right? So the commission recognized that and said, that's not fair, that's not right. We're gonna do away with that. So whatever you did last year is irrelevant because you didn't know it was a hurricane coming. Why should you be penalized for that? So that was very big. So a lot of cities have not done that, so that's a very proactive move. Does that answer the question? Cool. Now, to Mayor Brooks' point, right? A year goes by really fast, and a lot of people are thinking about what does it take to get the houses built, what are you gonna do next, and then what does it cost? And I get this question all the time. Hey, what does it take to build a house? You can't answer that question. What does it take to buy a car? How much is a car, right? You have so many different variables on how it's gonna be. The answer is go figure out what you want, right? Get with an architect, design a house, right? The way you want the house to build. You're gonna have to answer a lot of questions. What kind of house do you want? Is it wood frame? Is it concrete block? Is it ICF block? Is it metal studs? Is it wooden frame? Is it wood floor joists? Is it not? What kind of windows are you gonna use? What kind of roof are you gonna do? How high are your ceilings, right? Is there a pool? What kind of fixtures? What kind of refrigerators? You're gonna put a $30,000 Sub-Zero in or are you not? Right, all of these things are gonna come back to what kind of home you're gonna build. And then you now have something you could put out to bid to the contractors and say, here's my home I want, give me a price on how to build it. Now you give me your price, you give me your price, and I'm gonna figure out who I'm gonna choose to be my contractor to build the house. So to the point that a year goes by fast, it's gonna take you months probably to get with an architect to figure out the real home you want and tweak the moves of the walls and the size of the bathrooms and all those other things in the way. Get on that now. If you know you're gonna rebuild or you're pretty sure you're gonna rebuild, don't wait, because guess what's gonna happen? You know, what do we typically have in the town? 15 new houses built a year? Maybe. Now enter that to be 400 new houses being built. Everyone's gonna be jam-packed, the prices are gonna go up, there's gonna be bottlenecks in productions, so get on it quickly if you're planning on building, start the process now, and it's gonna be a big, big savings for you, because if you're stuck in the middle, it's gonna be not pretty down the road, because prices are gonna go up. You look down at Fort Myers Beach, for example, right, prices have gone up to about $800 a foot now down there, when they were about $400 a foot before. We're gonna see the exact same thing come across. So my advice is really speed that up along the way. Do you have a question about this?
Yes, I've been hearing all along about remodeling and rebuilding, but I don't really hear about just a repair. And to me, there should be something about repair on an older home that's never had water, and you just have certain things that you need to repair so you can live in it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, a contractor, I hear everybody, you know, there's good things about a contractor, certainly. They have many resources and stuff, but it increases the cost, and it also increases delays a lot of time. Whereas, as an example, I have a broken slider door. I could go out and find 3 different places to fix that slider door for not much money at all, and I could have some light in my home. I also have an AC that works. It's probably not at that code, but if it works and an electrician looks at it and says, you know, my handler didn't go through the water, my compressor is outside and it's higher up, and it runs, and if it works, hey, it was an old one, and I can repair that when it doesn't work. You know, I understand the safety issues and stuff like that, but, you know, you know, putting all new doors in an old house, you know, makes no sense to me. Putting all new cabinets in an old house doesn't make sense to me. And I'm almost 75, and I'm not gonna build a new house. And getting my land value out is not gonna happen in a while.
Okay.
So.
Well, you don't have to rebuild. You don't have to do anything. As long as you're under that 50% rule, you've got the money to do what you want to do. Go hire a kitchen guy to come over and do your kitchen. Go hire a bathroom guy to do that. Go hire a PGT window salesman to come over and replace your sliders. You don't need a GC to do that. Just call. They're going to need a permit to do it right? And so that's up to them to do that right and get the permits on it. So no, you don't have to rebuild. You don't have to do anything. Just stay under that 50% number, right? So yes, that's as long as you're not deemed substantially damaged and you're allowed to, you can. All right, so a couple things that we're working on behind the scene. This is very important because we've talked before about forbearances on mortgages, right? And a lot of you have one. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you have a mortgage on your house, typically you call up your mortgage company and say, hey, I'm in a lot of trouble here. We're kind of scrambled. I have to get an Airbnb. I'm not living in my house. Will you give me a pause on my mortgage for 90 days called a forbearance? And a lot of the mortgage companies are saying, sure, no problem. You're in a declared disaster area. We'll add, you're good for 90 days. If you need another 90 days, let us know. And typically, a lot of times they would put that to the end of your loan and no problem. What's happening now, and this is what's very important that you find this out, a lot of them are now saying it's due in full after the 90 days. So if your mortgage payment was $3,000 a month, and you're going to get to not pay November, December, and January, guess what happens in February? You're going to owe all $9,000 plus become current on your forward-going payments, right? And they'll let you extend it for 3 more months to go through another one. This is a big problem. So one of the things that we're working on, that Mr. Bay Rudy is working on over here, we're working with the legislators to try to figure out ways, is to get something legislatively done that the mortgage companies don't do that or can't do that. That's just not right. To try to add it to the end of the loan is only the fair thing to do. So that's something that's got to happen. It's just not right to do it the other way. It's creating undue burdens and hardships. And I just don't think people know about it. So you got to get awareness to things to make things happen. And that's what is able to happen here. It's a must happen. Everybody should get 6 months added to the back of your loan and be able to breathe when you're impacted the way that we've all been impacted, right? So it's just not fair to do that. So I think we're looking forward to some of that going on. The other cool things that we're hopeful to get some change done on is the FHA loan programs, right? There's 203H is a hurricane disaster loan that you can get to basically go, let's say you're renting a house and you got displaced. It's designed to allow you to go buy a house, right, with no money down, low interest rates, go help your life, go. Cheap money, no money down, get into a nice house. That's good program, but it's only $489,000 is the max loan limit. And there's not much on the island you can buy for $489,000, right? So one of the other things we're working to do is increase that loan amount limit to see if we can do that. So you have SBA loan options and the FHA loan program. That number should go up to $2 million or whatever the number needs to be. It shouldn't matter because what would happen as a result? And you got to, this is what we're talking about, applying logic to politics, right? So if you are the government and you can actually loan out $2 million at 3% interest, that's a good thing, isn't it? Because now you're going to get a house out of the flood zone. You're going to get rid of the risk out of FEMA. You're going to put a ton of people to work. And then guess what's going to happen 2 years from now? You're going to get, you're going to get the tax increase. Because right now you're on the tax rolls on a $300,000 structure. And 2 years from now, you're going to get reassessed at $1 million structure. So therefore, the tax revenue for the cities and for the states and for everyone just tripled, right? So the logic there is there. So that's some of the things that we're working on. What's that?
You're right.
Yeah, good. You checked my math? Yes.
Any chance you have any pull with getting the SBA to offer people a good credit, a better interest rate?
To get,
The low bad credit, get a better interest rate than people with good credit.
I wish I had the logical pull to that one. We're talking about SBA loans and inequity on SBA loans on that one. So.
3 months will change.
Right. Okay.
SBA is different than the 203H loan?
SBA is totally different because it's a loan to you as a person, right? And so you're actually signing off to borrow money from the SBA, federal government. And it's a low interest loan, but you can go to the Bahamas with it if you want to. It's not designated to something specific, right? So that's a loan to you. Now the 203H is like going to buy a home, an FHA home, and it's a loan on the home to you, but to buy a specific home on that aspect there. Businesses too. Yep. Okay. So these are the, we are, FHA loans. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to end the official moment because we're going to be on time for that one. And Kim, you want to just come up? We're going to answer some questions up here for a second. Questions are, where do you get information on these type of loans? Because we're getting to the point now where you need to figure out, are you going to renovate, or are you going to build, or what you're going to actually do. So we'll talk about the 203. So the official program is over because we told you 6 to 8, and it's 6 to 8. And I want to respect everybody's time for that one. We'll be here as long as possible. We'll answer as many questions as you guys have for as long as it takes. And that's there. So did you guys learn a little bit tonight? Get some good? Okay, good. Very good. And then also just the other experts here, Tom Abraham mentioned himself. Tom, stand up for a second. I hope you don't need Tom Abraham, right? Because Tom Abraham is going to be the guy, he's my personal real estate attorney. And I don't even know if I introduced myself. I don't know if I'm Jeff Beggins here. I didn't even do that. But he's my personal real estate attorney. And he has done, 5,000 short sale negotiations now? So if you get into the bind where your house isn't worth as much as the mortgage is on it, don't freak out. He'll work you through the entire process of it. That's the aspect on that one there.